Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to another I'm Ready, a SpongeBob Squarecast. Here we are again, episode 4 of SpongeBob, or technically 5. I mean, if you count Reef Blower as an episode, which I do, and I made a mistake. Today we're going to be watching Ripped Pants, season 1 episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. Can you believe this is very early on in these podcast episodes, and I'm already making like an update video, or an update audio, if you will, depending on where you're watching this show. And even then, there's not even really a video aspect of it, so it's always audio, an update audio. I launched this podcast earlier this year in 2019, where, of course, I have an end goal in mind of this podcast. I've like this end vision, this big grand moment that I would say would be the peak of this show, which I'll be open and honest with you, is interviewing Tom Kenny one-on-one live on stage in front of a group of SpongeBob fans, regardless of size. It could be a small room all the way up to a theater. That right there is tip of the mountain of this show. Of course, interviewing anybody associated with SpongeBob SquarePants would be an absolute honor, but that is the peak currently. And I knew this. So, you know, you got to go through smaller windows before you get to the big one. Some people have the attitude of like, no, you always aim big. And I think I aimed a little bigger with even just a small facet of this show earlier this year, which was have a new guest on every episode of the show. And now, let me be honest, if this was my full-time job making, I have other podcasts I work on, other pieces of art and entertainment I work with. It's all hobbies at this point. None of it is a full-time job. I have an actual 45-hour-a-week full-time job outside of this. So if I didn't have that job, then maintaining that idea that every episode of I'm Ready, a SpongeBob Squarecast would have a different guest and get a nice little rhythm of new people coming on, trying to get new faces, trying to get fans to come on to the show would be a super simple task, but I'm not at that point yet. So I've already had a handful of guests on so far with episodes I have recorded. Future episodes, I kind of let them pick, if it was their first time, I let them pick out an episode of season 1, not leaving that yet. So I do have a handful of those episodes, but I realized that for right now, for me to crank out content in the way that I want to, it's going to have to be a solo ship right now. I don't know if anyone out there has played the game Sea of Thieves, which is I don't mean a rare game as in hard to find, but by the company Rare for the Xbox. It's a pirate game. And it's completely online. And when you start out online, they give you the option of having I know one of them is a sloop, and I think it's a galleon. I will be super impressed if I got that right. I haven't played it in a while. But the whole idea is, do you want a big ship that a lot of people can join, or do you want a little ship that, it could just be you and one other person? I hope to get this podcast to a big ship, but right now I'm going to have to sail on my own as the solo captain here, and eventually get a splattering of guests, and hopefully one day, I mean, look, I've put out only 2 episodes this year, which is terrible, but maybe I'll just consider 2019 a preview of the show and crank out more episodes. And I have seen so many other SpongeBob podcasts come out of the woodwork, and I love all of them. I don't consider them competition, because I want as many different podcasts about SpongeBob out there to try new things. This one is not a new concept, but it is one that I'm going to maintain for the foreseeable future. I don't ever see a moment where I go, yeah, I'm just not going to do this show. If I have to do the whole run of the series and movies by myself, I'll do it, and I can give that to the world and say, here is my view of SpongeBob SquarePants. I saw a show. Look it up. I forgot the name. It could be another SpongePod Squarecast name. But it's a girl. I gotta look this up. It's a girl who is reciting, or going over every episode of SpongeBob to her 70-year-old grandfather, and that tickled me. I thought that was such a fantastic idea. Hopefully, I can reach out to some of these people. I would even love to interview other shows. But I had to take a pause to find this out. I found it on Apple Podcasts. It's called SpongeBob Squarecast. An 11-year-old American girl explains SpongeBob SquarePants to her 46-year-old Scottish stepfather who has never watched it. The most recent episode was December 6th. 2019, not last year, but I read that and said, "Wow, that is a fantastic show." So kudos to the SpongeBob Squarecast out there, and to anyone else who has a show, and to anyone out there who, I'm sure if you've listened to this show, you probably already heard my anchor ads, but literally, I go with the Kevin Smith podcasting school. If anyone out there wants to start a podcast, just do it. Just get some equipment. Equipment can be range from very cheap to expensive, but you can even just use the microphone that is usually embedded in your laptop, or if you have like an iMac or something. Just start recording. Find some friends to do this, and don't do what I did, which is is go through the bigger picture first. Start small. Start where you're enjoying it, because if you're not enjoying it and your whole goal is just to get to that big picture, then there's no point to do it at all, because you're just going to have to work hard and fall into a little bit of luck. So that's my advice, and I'm going to be taking my own advice as far as this show's going forward. Some SpongeBob related news. I have acquired most of the PC games. And I'm hoping to start, obviously I'm doing these episodes in order, but I believe right during season 2 or right at the end of season 1, I will hit the first video game release, which, if for anyone who has listened to my introduction, the video games are going to be, I'm going to play those in full and review them in order of release, even in between episodes. And we have a Twitch channel, for where I'm going to be putting, Video Bob Game Pants. I believe that's the title I stuck with. Why not anyway? So follow me on Instagram, which I was able to score. I don't know how this wasn't taken, but on Instagram, my show is at SpongeBob Podcast. Boom. Find me on Instagram. On Twitter, I believe it's at I'm Ready Podcast. And we have a Facebook page. Keep on those, because that's where I'm going to be putting the information. Obviously, I can say the dates and times here, but depending on when you listen to this specific episode at this specific time, it may be after the fact. So follow the show on social media whenever you can, because anytime I will go on a live stream for SpongeBob, it'll be up there. As far as like these episodes, doing them live, that is something that can come down at a later date, and we can determine that. So some SpongeBob related things that have happened in my life. I have an aquarium. It's I think it's a 10-gallon or a 20-gallon aquarium. It's only $20 at Walmart. It's actually really cheap, and it's just a regular rectangle aquarium. Obviously I got it. Long story short on how I had a beta fish beforehand from a previous, situation, if you will. Somehow I'm all of a sudden I have this beta fish in my possession, and it had a very small tank, and at one point he kind of looks like Squidward, and I'll make sure to put that picture up on Instagram and Twitter. He just had a big frown on his face. He's this blue beta fish. So I got him Squidward's tiki house in his tank, and he loved it, but then it was also taking up so much room in this small tank. So then I found this big tank and said, well, you know what? This fish is going to live in style. And now I have an excuse to get SpongeBob's pineapple. If you go to Petco and Walmart, the only places I have found that sell the SpongeBob set of aquarium pieces, you will find SpongeBob's pineapple in 2 different sizes. You will find Squidward's house that matches with one of the sizes of the pineapple. You will find a Krusty Krab, and then you will find little figurines of all the Bikini Bottom characters, or at least most of the big ones. You won't find Patrick's Rock. If you do some Google searching, you will find a little representation of Patrick's Rock, but it's this kind of like, this company made all these little aquarium pieces that are just kind of scenes from the show, or like it's SpongeBob and Patrick doing something on a flat background, and one of those flat backgrounds has like half of Patrick's Rock, and it doesn't mix with the set very well. But if you do a little bit of digging, you'll find that in the early 2000s, in the first run of aquarium pieces, they actually had a Patrick Rock bubble house. So it was sand, Patrick sitting in a chair with a lamp watching a television, and then his entire rock that would kind of open up when it bubbles. And I will tell you, I started this aquarium last year. I could not find this piece whatsoever. Like, I Amazon searched, eBay searched, I found threads of people begging for this thing, like looking for it. So anytime I would think about it, I would try my searches again. I'm sure a bunch of people listening to this are on the Goofy Goobers Facebook page. It's like the official SpongeBob fan Facebook page. There was somebody who showed off their aquarium that was very similar to mine. Had the three pieces, the pineapple, Squidward's house, the Krusty Krab. And a part of the thread said like, oh, where's Patrick's house? And I mentioned, hey, I took the screenshot of this piece and saying like, hey, here's this thing that existed at one point in time, and it would go pretty perfect with the other pieces. I think the rock is a little bit bigger than it should be, but it fits really well. And somebody commented under that saying like, thank you, you have helped so many people on here. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't really help anything because this thing is impossible to find. Then the guy reposts an eBay link going like, oh, it's up currently on eBay for auction. I made sure to win that auction. I will not disclose the amount, but I'm sure you can find it. It's really not that much, more than I would usually spend for an aquarium piece. But so I was able to get the bubbler house. It's not currently in the aquarium right now, but I will make sure to have pictures of that on Instagram and Twitter, probably the Facebook page too, because I think when you post on Instagram, it can connect to both. So I'll make sure to do that for anyone listening. I got to see the off-Broadway version of the SpongeBob musical. Actually, a little bit of help from a friend, knowing how big of a fan I am and knowing that I'm a part of the show, was able to score me some comp tickets to see that. Wonderful seeing it again. Everybody, obviously I love the Broadway cast, but everybody in the off-Broadway show did such a fantastic job that it was almost unnoticeable that it wasn't Ethan Slater and Gavin Lee and Danny Skinner up there on stage. I do think the off-Broadway Mr. Krabs was a tad better, but it was really the laugh that he had a better Mr. Krabs laugh. But all in all, loved the show again. A tad shorter, that you can definitely, if you're a fan of the show and have listened to the songs, you'll know right away when you're kind of singing in your head where they cut out entire sections of songs to kind of speed up the show a little bit. So it is what it is. It's off Broadway. I'm glad people got to enjoy it. And then of course, I hope all of you checked out the live version on Nickelodeon, which brought back the original Broadway cast, but then kind of played it in the off-Broadway version. A wonderful mix, and I'm so happy to see so many people enjoy it. And the one thing, it was wonderful also to see SpongeBob trending on Twitter, #1. And I actually put out some tweets that night. The amount of fans out there, this is the last thing I will bring up before we get into ripped pants. The amount of fans out there who think that the Broadway musical is somehow a slight against Steven Hillenburg couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, Steven had to approve of this, and there are pictures of him with Ethan Slater. There are pictures of him at the Broadway premiere. And from all accounts, from anyone who spoke to him or interviewed, he seemed delighted at the show. He loved it. So we all of us SpongeBob fans want to make sure we preserve Steven Hillenburg's creation and to keep his legacy pure, and which, kind of then divides some of the fan base when certain things like Camp Coral are announced. But to try to put out the information that somehow this is a slight against Steven Hillenburg is just false. And I just wish those fans would take a moment in time to just do some research and realize that what they're saying is just wrong. If the guy didn't want this to be done, I don't think he would have signed off on it. And even if that didn't need to happen for Nickelodeon to force this, I don't think he would be so loving of the show. I don't think he would have gone to the premiere, and maybe if he did, just to be polite, I don't think he would then go and tell, go around and say that, he seemed delighted at the show. So that's just what I have to say about that. I did write a tweet just saying, like, your heart's in the right place, but you need to watch what you're saying. So on to the show. We are watching Ripped Pants today, which is the second episode right after Bubble Stand. It first premiered on July 17th, 1999. Was written by Paul Tibbitt and Peter Burns. The storyboard artist for this episode was Mark O'Hare. Paul Tibbitt also did the storyboard. The animation by Edgar Larrazabal. I definitely butchered that name, and I apologize. And I hope if he ever hears that, he accepts my apology and I can get an actual pronunciation. This episode is important because not only is this the debut of Larry the Lobster, this is also really a debut to a lot of other sea creatures. I remember seeing Don the Whale in this episode and going, like, whoa, they have a whale on the show, which was obviously before Pearl. And just seeing, this is the first introduction of Goo Lagoon, which is an insane concept in and of itself, but it's actually not. A lot of people think it's a whole pool of water. It's a pool of like muck, which, if anyone knows, like oil and water really doesn't mix well. So there is some science to kind of back up the Goo Lagoon, but I'm not a scientist and I'm not going to try to convince you, but definitely look it up. I believe Matt Pat did a episode on this of Nick or Fiction, or no, Fact or Niction, I believe is the show on Facebook he did, Matt Pat of Game and Film Theory. So check that out. But yeah, as usual, for all first season episodes, I am watching this on Amazon Prime. This episode is still on the complete first season sets and is also in the first 100 episodes set. So if you have any of those, you can watch along. So this, you don't have to worry about the intro because this is the secondary episode. So normally at this point, I would pause and watch with somebody. I don't really need to do that. So I'm going to just do a self pause so I can get a water. And when I come back, we will watch the episode together.
2,000 years later.
And welcome back. I got to say, I also really love getting all of those title card audio. So even if I don't even need to take a break before going into the episode, I will take the break, if only to be able to have an excuse to throw those the title card audio in there. So if you're watching along with me, I am starting the episode in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. If the play button wants to work, and of course it doesn't. Wow. This is embarrassing. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and I'll tell you when the title card is up. Now, Ripped Pants. Here we go. Oh, man. There we go. There's Paul Tibbitt, Peter Burns. I realized I don't even need to say that information earlier, but what can I say? I am a grateful host here of information. Here we have Goo Lagoon, Bikini Bottom's premiere beachfront, which I enjoy the idea of, all of the characters, like these characters needing umbrellas to block from the sun, because it's not like they're getting more sun here than they would at home. SpongeBob's first time really impersonating Squidward, which is wonderful. Apparently, this episode didn't premiere in Canada until March 11th, 2000. So that's a long time. Apparently, this is also the first episode where SpongeBob is shown wearing a different attire rather than his normal clothes. I don't know why I said apparently there. I mean, this is the first time you see SpongeBob wearing something. And I love how he still has his arms, his shirt sleeves, but he's supposed to be at the beach, and those are just supposed to be pants. So, the fact that I've never noticed that, and I'm pointing it out, I need to pay attention to any time he's wearing his swim trunks to see if they eventually do away with that. I'm a SpongeBob fan, but that might be a level of trivia that is I'm gonna start getting onto. But if somebody asked me now, like, hey, if in season 6 when he's in his swim trunks, so you see his sleeves, I wouldn't be able to answer that. So we have Larry the Lobster here. I like Larry the Lobster, but I don't love him. But there's a reason why he is a side character. But if you kind of lined up all of the side characters, like the characters who will appear more often than not, like Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, Mrs. Puff, SpongeBob's parents, I would probably put Larry below all of those. I mean, you kind of get the most out of him here, and I would say second to that, the episode where SpongeBob wants to be a lifeguard. This fish just sitting by himself making toasting marshmallows is absolutely hilarious. I don't know why. It doesn't make me laugh out loud, but anytime I've seen him, and he's just so happy and doesn't mind giving away his marshmallows. He seems like a cool dude, but it just always kind of makes me internally laugh. Of course, this is the early ongoing joke that SpongeBob is super weak. This is something really pushed at more in the earlier seasons of this joke that, he's trying to lift stuffed animals. Here he's trying to lift marshmallows and accidentally rips his pants, which is apparently Tom Kenny said this is one of his favorite episodes, although the Encyclopedia SpongeBobia also mentions that this episode was not included in Tom Kenny's top 20 episodes playlist. So, but I feel like Tom has to love most or all episodes. I mean, there's probably a few he's not a fan of, maybe a handful. I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't a fan of The Splinter, which is a notorious episode, but maybe he is. Maybe if you asked him, he would go like, yeah, it's one of my favorite episodes. Maybe that's just something he says no matter what the episode is. So SpongeBob's able to pick up the volleyball, toss the volleyball in the air, but he's not able to hit it, and then decides to rip his pants again. I remember as a kid growing up, this is a personal favorite of a lot of kids. Obviously, the idea of ripping your pants is just a funny concept. Let me tell you, I'm not. This is a little personal here. I am not a fat man, but I am not skinny either. I'm very much. I've got some meat on me, and the idea of what is called blowout in a part of your pants, that just when you wear a pair of jeans, after a certain amount of time, you make one little mistake, one little wrong judgment in what your legs can do, and you might rip your pants. I have experienced what SpongeBob is experiencing here, except for it's usually on a personal, it's not happening in front of people, or that they don't know it happened, so you're just kind of sitting there embarrassed. Bothering the ice cream guy. Ripple. That's a personal favorite of mine right there. Of course, the box joke is my number one favorite of this entire episode. Probably top 3 of this entire season. I wonder how that burger stacks up to the Krabby Patty. I wonder if that's just a real subpar ham or cheeseburger that this man is eating. I don't even know why it would be ham. Ripped pants a la mode. I had to say it. Yeah, this has a good amount of one-liners, but they're all ripped pants related. Here we go. Excuse. For that joke, I love it, but who is seeing this? Who is seeing this playing out? Just maybe the patrons, if they can hear it. It's like that's a joke just for that fry cook. Here comes the surfing competition, and of course here comes SpongeBob, ripping his pants again. Look, I gotta say, I've never surfed before in my life. I can ride a skateboard. I can just imagine that, of course, I think the most impressive surfing maneuver there was Sandy doing a handstand. I don't think laying down on the surfboard is that impressive. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, I'm not a surfer, but I'm just imagining a skateboard. I would feel comfortable riding a skateboard, getting down and laying down on it like it was a luge. I definitely wouldn't feel comfortable doing a handstand, although I've seen other skateboarders being able to do that. SpongeBob was riding that thing backwards and ripping his pants at the same time. If somebody did that on a skateboard, that would be impressive to me. So in that situation, they played it off and like, oh my goodness, this again. But it was a pretty impressive surfing maneuver, and more impressive than Larry's. At least I'm concerned. I would have to ask a surfer, like out of those three, what is the most impressive, or the least impressive. Scooter there, not impressed by SpongeBob's jokes. And I think it's still, I don't know. I would be laughing. Surfing knocks him dead, pretending to drown. No. Yeah, don't do that for humor. There are people out there who would find that funny, but the general public would not find that humorous. Pants ripped off. Notice he is still wearing his shirt sleeves. So he's just in underwear and shirt sleeves, which is great. There is a lot of, as far as the trivia of this show goes, we've kind of mentioned the big things. Of course, we have a meme. We have a very popular meme from this episode, which is, of course, when the lifeguard looks at the camera through the fourth wall right after SpongeBob says his ripped pants thing there. It's known as the serious lifeguard fish meme. And now we get to find out all the other Biggest Losers on the beach. This is the first episode not to feature Conch Street, which is where SpongeBob lives. Yeah, okay, buddy. You dropped your burgers in the sand. I wouldn't call him a loser. That whale, Don the whale, that is the biggest loser right there. I don't even consider him a loser, but if you lined up all four of those situations, being buried in the sand and just forgotten, like left, that is terrible. Forgetting to put on sunscreen, that's laughable. And maybe people would go like, come on, you knew you were coming to the beach. Dropping your hamburgers in the sand is not inherently like a loser thing. It's like, that stinks. I feel bad for you. Go get another burger. But Don the whale just feels bad. A lot of people really love this song. I wouldn't say it's in my top 5, but there was a good chunk of my youth. The first SpongeBob CD that came out is just music from the show. There's like 6 tracks on this CD, and it's the theme song, the Ripped Pants song, the Texas song with Sandy, the song that Pantera plays, SpongeBob Scaredy Pants, and then the Tie Your Shoes song. Maybe there's one more, but I think I got all 6 right there. This was one of the least listened songs on that CD for me. There was just a point in time that I was listening to SpongeBob music. I didn't listen to this song as much, and I've grown a new appreciation of it. That it's actually a really fun song. It's quick, it's simple, and look at all these losers just playing together in harmony about ripped pants. and all their other silly problems. Well, he was being himself. This is a great Larry moment. Or no, you know what? Yeah, signing his pants, and then of course his underwear pops up. SpongeBob was being himself. He was being jokey. He was having fun. He was realizing that this thing that he can do is making others. He was bringing enjoyment to other people, which is what SpongeBob likes to do. Was making others laugh. And the second they stopped laughing, he wanted to. All he wanted to do was find another way to make them laugh. That was it. So I don't think he inherently did anything wrong. It was just like no one was able to tell him, SpongeBob, that joke is old. Find something else to do. But they were just kind of mean to him. So I don't know. I don't blame SpongeBob. This, I'm just sitting here watching the credits. The music, the credits here and the music, it kind of upsets me that they don't let shows have outro themes like that anymore. Like they, almost every channel, when you go through the credits of a show, it'll kind of minimize that and start showing commercials or stuff coming up next. I think that's a great thing to kind of unwind on before you jump into another show or, just at the end of something. But anyway, that was Ripped Pants. Apparently this episode also premiered on David Hasselhoff's 47th birthday. So happy birthday, Hasselhoff. Apparently there's just a few other things. SpongeBob surfs in this episode, but in SpongeBob SquarePants versus the Big One, he does not know how to surf. That's just, is that kind of continuity gonna bother anyone? I kind of like the idea of SpongeBob learning how to surf, but in this episode they were like, hey, he goes to Goo Lagoon a lot. He probably already knows how to surf. Anyway, that is this episode of I'm Ready, a SpongeBob Squarecast. I have already mentioned all of the social media, so at SpongeBob, the actual SpongeBob podcast on Instagram, at I'm Ready Podcast on Twitter. Find the Facebook group. I am also a member of the Goofy Goobers Facebook group where I share some content from the show and a few other things. I was trying to be an admin in that group for so long because the running rampant of just inappropriate, like, look, I'm an adult. I could enjoy inappropriate humor, but there's a time and place for it. And this group that is supposed to be the official SpongeBob Facebook group was not the time or place. And there was only one admin, which was the SpongeBob Facebook group. So luckily they stopped letting people just post whatever they wanted and realized that's a terrible thing to do. Let's just, the one negative of that is now you have to wait, until they approve your posts. But anyway, so yeah, you can find me on there. Absolutely. Just find me on any of these forms of social media. I'm active on there as much as I can. And obviously where I'm currently recording this, 2019 is slowly coming to a close. But this show will continue above and beyond. There's not going to be a stop moment. And for the fans that have been paying attention, thank you for supporting the show this year. I'm just going to thank you here. And if I record another episode today, and here's on to 2020 and keep moving this sloop forward. And I'm going to end on that. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and thank you for listening to I'm Ready, a SpongeBob Squarecast. Arg. I don't have an ending of this show.